I never thought I'd be treated like a burden in my own son's home. But just 2 weeks after I moved in, my daughter-in-law slapped me across the face and pointed at the floor. "Clean that," she said coldly, as if I were her maid. And my son, he just stood there, silent. Before we continue, please write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. 2 weeks earlier, I had packed my suitcase and left the quiet, familiar comfort of my small home in Ohio. My son Alex had just called me days before. Sounding excited, but also stressed. "Mum," he said, "Kayla and I need help. With the baby coming, we could really use someone to stay with us." Just for a little while, I didn't hesitate. I'd raised Alex on my own after his father passed away when he was 6. I'd worked 2 jobs, gone without vacations, and skipped meals so he could grow up with a chance at a better life. Now, he was married, had a house in California, and was about to become a father. Of course, I'd help. When I arrived, Kayla greeted me with a polite smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked tense, almost irritated, as if she had expected someone else to show up. Or maybe she just didn't want anyone to show up at all. Alex was working long hours, often going from morning to late at night. That left me with Kayla and her parents, Carol and Dean, who had moved in temporarily to help prepare the nursery. From the beginning, I felt like an outsider. Kayla's parents would whisper in the kitchen, glance at me, then lower their voices. Carol would constantly rearrange the things I gleaned. Dean would make passive comments like, "Some people think helping means taking over." Still, I kept my head down. I washed the dishes, folded laundry, and even helped paint the baby's room. I cooked dinner almost every night. I never complained because I was there for Alex, but I started to notice something strange. Whenever Alex was home, Kayla acted sweet. She'd kiss me on the cheek, thanked me for the help, and even offered me tea. But as soon as he walked out the door, her face changed. She'd sigh loudly when I walked into the room. She'd roll her eyes when I asked how she was feeling, and she started leaving messes, cups, wrappers, crumbs, everywhere, especially in the living room. It felt like she was testing me, seeing if I'd clean up without being asked. At first I did, then one afternoon, I was sitting on the couch, rubbing my knees after sweeping the hallway. Kayla walked in, holding a glass of iced tea. She stood near the edge of the rug, looked directly at me, and let the glass slip. It shattered. Ice, tea, and glass everywhere. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She looked at me, stone-faced, and said, "Clean that." When I didn't move right away, stunned at what had just happened, she took 2 steps toward me, and without hesitation, slapped me across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Her parents didn't say a word. They just watched. And my son, standing in the kitchen entryway, looked frozen. His eyes flicked between me and Kayla. Then he looked away. At that moment, something broke inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even say a word. I walked to my room and quietly closed the door behind me. But that night, while everyone slept, I wrote something on a piece of paper, folded it, placed it on the kitchen counter, and by the time the sun came up, I was gone. The morning after I left, Kayla found the note. I imagine she walked into the kitchen expecting me to be there, making coffee or folding laundry like I always did. Instead, there was just silence and a folded piece of paper resting on the counter. The note read, "I came here to help, not to be humiliated. I raised a man, not a coward. Goodbye." That was it. No drama, no explanation, just the truth. I didn't have any plans when I left. I didn't even have a place to stay. I booked a cheap motel about 10 minutes away and turned my phone off. I needed time to breathe, time to think, and time to feel something again besides shame. Back at the house, however, things quickly sprayed up. I didn't know this part until later, when Alex finally reached out to me weeks later, but apparently, Kayla panicked when she saw the note, not because she was worried about me, but because she knew how it would look. To her parents, to Alex, to the neighbors. The image of the dutiful daughter-in-law was starting to crack. According to Alex, she lied at first. told him I had stormed out in a fit of rage, that I was too sensitive and couldn't handle being around other people. She said I was paranoid and ungrateful. But what she didn't count on was the security camera. Weeks earlier, Alex had installed a small camera near the front hallway to keep an eye on the front door deliveries. It wasn't hidden, just small and discreet. And that camera had audio. The slap, the words, her tone, her posture. It was all there, crystal clear. He told me later, his voice shaking, that when he watched the footage, he felt sick to his stomach. He couldn't believe it, but there it was. His wife, the mother of his unborn child, slapped his own mother in front of her parents and demanded she clean up a mess she didn't make. He confronted Kayla that evening. Apparently, her first reaction wasn't guilt, it was defensive. She was trying to control the house. She looked down on my parents. She needed to be put in her place. Her words, not mine. Alex said he sat on the edge of the bed for 10 minutes in silence after that. Then, he picked up his car keys and left the house. He drove around, for hours, thinking about the life he had built, the choices he made, and how, somehow, he had let this kind of behavior go unnoticed, or worse, unchallenged, right under his roof. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my motel room, still unsure. If leaving was the right thing, I was alone, sore, and tired. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Was I overreacting? Did I abandon my son? Had I made a mistake? Then my phone buzzed. It was Alex. His message was short. "Mum, I saw everything. I'm sorry. Please, talk to me." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't ready to talk. Not because I was angry, but because I needed him to feel what I felt. Not just guilt, but real understanding. He messaged again the next day, and again each time. His messages became more heartfelt. "I should have protected you, I didn't know, but that's not an excuse. I don't want you to feel like a stranger in my life," but still, I said nothing. He needed to sit in that silence, just like I had, and deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because Kayla wasn't someone who liked to lose control. And the next time I saw her, she wasn't going to pretend to be nice anymore. No. She was going to show her true face. It was on the 5th day after I left when I finally turned my phone back on. Missed calls, voicemails, messages from Alex, a few from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Kayla, or worse, her mother pretending to be concerned, but one message stood out. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't beginning. It was just, "Mum, I've decided. I need to see you alone." I agreed to meet him at a quiet park halfway between my motel and his house. It was chilly, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, and he kept wringing his hands like a boy who had something to confess. "I'm so sorry, Mum," he said, as soon as he sat beside me on the bench. I didn't say anything at first. I let him talk. "She lied to me. About everything. Not just about what happened to you, but even about her parents. They were never supposed to stay this long. She manipulated everything, and I let her." I looked at him and saw the weight on his face. Regret, confusion, and shame, all blended. "She even tried to delete the footage," he added, voice cracking. But I had already backed it up. Finally spoke. "What are you going to do about it, Alex?" He stared ahead for a moment. I asked her to leave. That caught me off guard. She refused, he continued. Said I was choosing sides and betraying our family. She screamed so loud, the neighbors came outside. Carol got involved. Dean threatened to call the police on me if I didn't treat his daughter with respect. I sighed. Of course. They'd doubled down. I didn't kick her out, Alex admitted, ashamed. But I told her that until she apologized, truly apologized, you weren't coming back. And I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay. That was the moment I saw a glimmer of the man I raised. He asked if I would come home. Just for dinner, not to stay, just to talk. He said he'd cook, just the two of us. I agreed, but when I arrived that evening, the energy in the house was different, cold, tense, like walking into a room where everyone had just been fighting and tried to pretend they hadn't. Kayla was there. She didn't say hello, She didn't look up from her phone. She sat on the couch with her arms crossed, legs tucked under her. Acting like I was the intruder, Carol was in the kitchen, just helping with prep. Dean stood near the hallway, watching me like a hawk. Alex kept trying to act normally, asking about my motel room, offering wine, talking about baby names, but the air was heavy with unspoken things. Then, halfway through dinner, Kayla snapped, "You know what? I'm tired of this performance." Everyone went quietly. She left without saying a word. She disrespected me, and now she's being treated like a victim. Alex raised his hand. "Kayla, please don't know. I'm done pretending." She's toxic, controlling, always playing the martyr. She turned to me, eyes sharp. "You made my life miserable the second you walked into this house. You act like you're better than us, like you're entitled to everything just because you're his mum. Well, newsflash, I'm his wife. This is my home, and I don't want you in it." The room went silent. Alex looked like he'd been slapped. I stood up slowly, placed my napkin on the table, and looked her dead in the eyes. "You're right," I said calmly. "This is your home." Then I turned to Alex. "But you'll have to decide what kind of home you want to raise your child in, one ruled by fear and pride, or one where respect still means something." And with that, I walked out. But this time, I didn't leave empty-handed, because in the corner of the room, something caught my eye as I walked past. Carol's purse, slightly open. Inside was a document, something I never expected, something that would shift the balance completely. As I stepped past Carol's purse on my way out, something fluttered to the floor. A few papers, likely knocked loose when I brushed by. I bent down instinctively, planning to place them back inside. But then my eyes landed on the top page, and I froze. It was a legal document, a court summons, filed 6 years ago. Plaintiff, Margaret Evans. Defendant, Kayla Evans. Charge elder, abuse and financial exploitation. My breath caught in my throat. I scanned the details, my hands trembling. The document outlined a restraining order filed by an older woman, Kayla's own grandmother, claiming Kayla had manipulated her into signing over a portion of her savings account. There were mentions of verbal abuse, threats, and even isolation tactics. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Suddenly, everything made sense. The coldness, the control, the lies. Kayla had done this before, only this time I'd unknowingly walked straight into her trap. I slipped the paper back into the purse carefully, making sure nothing seemed disturbed, and walked out the front door without looking back. But as soon as I reached my car, I began shaking. This wasn't just about a bad daughter-in-law anymore. This was something darker, dangerous. And Alex had no idea who he had married. Back at the motel, I sat in silence, replaying the dinner scene. Every detail felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place, the way Carol and Dean always hovered. How Kayla twisted the narrative to make herself the victim. Her complete lack of remorse. This wasn't impulsive, it was learned behavior. She had done this before, and she'd gotten away with it. The next morning, I called a friend, Margaret, an old neighbor from Ohio who had moved to California a few years ago. She worked at a legal office, and I needed guidance. "I can't use the document," I told her. "It wasn't mine to see. But I know what I saw." Margaret was quiet for a moment, then said something that stuck with me. "You don't need to use it. You just need to make sure your son sees it too." With her help, I drafted a simple letter. I kept it short, calm, and factual. No anger. Just the truth. I included the date on the court filing, the name of the plaintiff, and the court location. I didn't accuse Kayla of anything directly. I simply wrote, "Alex, for your own safety, please look into this. You deserve to know everything." I slipped the letter into an envelope and mailed it the next day. No text, no warning, just a quiet nudge toward the truth. What happened next unfolded quickly. Within 3 days, Alex showed up at my motel door. He looked like he hadn't slept again, but this time, his eyes were different, determined, angry, not at me. "I went to the courthouse," he said, gripping a folder in his hand. "It's all real. The documents, the hearing, everything. She kept it all hidden. He paced the room like a storm. She told me her grandma was senile, that she had made up stories, but now I don't know what's real anymore. I let him talk, let him vent, cry, swear, everything he had bottled up for months. Then he sat down and whispered, "I think I made a mistake, Mom, a huge one." I reached across the table and took his hand. "It's not too late to fix it," I said softly. "But you have to act fast before she does, because someone like Kayla wouldn't go down quietly." And as we'd both soon find out, she wasn't done yet. Alex returned home that night with the court documents in hand. He didn't say a word to Kayla as he entered. He didn't argue, didn't accuse. He simply walked into the bedroom, packed a small bag, and placed the folder on the dining table. Inside were copies of the abuse report, the court transcript, and a note in his handwriting. "I trusted you, I believed in you. But I won't be blind anymore." He moved out the same night, and stayed with a friend from work, while sorting out the next steps. The silence in the house must have unsettled Kayla, because within 48 hours, she exploded. She started calling him non-stop. Dozens of missed calls. Angry voicemails, some of which he later played for me, her voice switching from crying, to screaming, to threatening. "You're ruining everything. Your mother poisoned you against me. If you think you're taking this baby away from me, you're insane." But she didn't stop there. The next morning, Alex received a call from his office. Someone had anonymously reported him for verbal abuse and emotional instability. Human Resources had to open a formal inquiry. Then, someone called CPS, Child Protective Services, claiming he was emotionally dangerous and unfit to be a father. It didn't take long to trace the source. Kayla was trying to flip the script again, but this time, Alex was ready. With Margaret's help, he consulted a family law attorney, presented the court records from Kayla's past, and handed over the voicemail recordings. When CPS followed up, Alex invited the caseworker into a calm, clean home, and openly shared everything. Meanwhile, Kayla's behavior grew more erratic. She showed up outside Alex's workplace, banging on his car window. She sent a letter to my motel, calling me a sick manipulator and accusing me of tearing her family apart. I'll admit, part of me started to feel afraid, but another part, the stronger part, felt something else, relief, because the truth was finally out, and it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Alex, protecting that unborn child, and making sure this cycle of manipulation ended. After weeks of legal back and forth, Alex filed for legal separation. Kayla tried to stall the process by suddenly changing her mind and claiming she wanted to work things out. But the evidence was too strong. The final blow came when the judge reviewed the court history to previous restraining orders from elderly family members in Kayla's past. One of them included allegations of forged checks and emotional blackmail. Kayla's charm couldn't save her now. By the time her parents tried to step in, the damage was done. Carol and Dean showed up at one of the mediation hearings, trying to defend her, saying, "She's just misunderstood, Your Honor." But the judge didn't even look up from the paperwork when he replied, "What she is a pattern." The court granted Alex temporary custody once the child was born. He was also given a no-contact order until a full psychological evaluation could be conducted on Kayla. She screamed in court, literally screamed, and had to be escorted out by security. As for me, I moved back to Ohio, not because I was afraid, but because I finally had peace. And I wanted to live the rest of my life, quietly, with dignity. Alex promised he'd visit often with the baby, and he did. 6 months later, he brought a little girl to my porch. She was tiny, wrapped in pink blankets. With the softest eyes I'd ever seen, he placed her in my arms and whispered, "Her name's Grace. Because that's what you gave me, a second chance." I looked down at her and smiled. For the first time in a long time, I felt home again. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. And tell us below, what would you have done in her place? Thanks for watching.